JK, I'm just kidding. All right, on this second half of the forum, we are going to be talking about social, family, and community. And speaking of family, we'd like to acknowledge, of course, LT's partner, the one and only Matt Tapaschi in the house with us. Hello, Mr. Tapaschi, thank you so much for joining us as well. And now I'd like to welcome and introduce our second panelist, starting things off with Brian Teodosio, founder and president of Triton's Pride Alliance, the first LGBTQIA+ student organization at the University of Guam. He is working towards a Bachelor in Business Administration and aims to pursue a career in marketing and community relations. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Teodosio. I think you said my last name is unique, girl. Yes! Okay, our second panelist for this evening, please welcome Matt Rogelio Jr., Filipino-American music educator and founder of the Tumon Bay Music Festival. Max has served as a chief bandmaster for the Guam Territorial Band and co-founded the Guam Philharmonic Foundation. He has also served on the Guam Council of Arts and Humanities Agency and is a proud dog dad, okay, of two Yorkies, Noah and Ali. So cute! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Max! And of course, my auntie BJ, what's up, girl? How you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, Brian BJ Turlai in 1999. Not 1999. Brian BJ Turlai founded Hui Ohana in Zomia, Guam, focusing on Hawaiian, Tahitian, and Chamorro dances. The group, later renamed to Rasa and Achalati, won multiple competitions and shifted into perpetuating Chamorro culture. Turlaki, who began teaching in cultural dance at Ocean View Middle School in 2004, has led his group in global events like the Festival of the Pacific Arts and collaborated with the Guam Business Bureau for cultural promotions, co-founding the Chamorro Cultural Dance Tribal Council in 2012. Now that's a mouthful, wow. Turlaki has established cultural programs at John F. Kennedy High School and Sister City and Sister School relationships in Philippines, Japan, and continue to promote Chamorro culture locally and internationally. Please welcome the one and only Brian B. Turlaki. Okay, skinny legend, skinny girl. Okay, please welcome our next esteemed panel, Ms. Patricia Kier, a resident of Sinahanya and a special assistant for planning and development for the Guam Housing Corporation. Her most treasured title, however, is a mother of 3 daughters and 1 son, and grandmother to 4 growing grandsons. She considers herself to be a proud mama to a daughter in the LGBTQIA+ community and various other younger family members in the community. Please welcome Ms. Patricia Kier. Thank you so much for being here with us. And lastly, we'd like to welcome Mr. David Estrabado Jr., a home-based therapist at the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center specializing in child adolescent services. David has initiated Guam's first LGBTQI+ youth support group and aims to expand its reach in collaboration with GBOE. He holds a BA in psychology and a MA in counseling from the University of Guam. Please welcome David Estrabado Jr. And this is our panel for the second half. And as the first half went, everyone will get 3 questions. And you'll have a time limit. We do have our timer right there. If there's my shoulder, I just know when it's time to start. I'm just kidding. Okay, let's start things off with a bang from our youth eulogy student, Mr. Brian Teodosio. Question for you is, what motivated you to become a leader in the LGBTQ club? And what goals do you have for the organization?
Thank you for that question. Well, for as long as I can remember, I always struggled to find my sense of belonging. I always had trouble fitting in, finding friends. When it came to finding my clique, it would always be that I was too masculine for the girls or too feminine for the guys. So, growing up, I didn't have anyone that I could confide in or relate to because I didn't know anyone that was queer, and being queer is often looked down upon in my upbringing. So when I came to the University of Guam, I started Triton's Pride Alliance because I wanted students to find that community that I didn't have when I was a child. And just to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel accepted, that is really what I want students to get out of this club. And it really does bring meaning to my life to know that students are getting that from my club, Triton's Pride Alliance. And yeah, it really does continue to motivate me to be a leader for that club. As for goals for the organization, I do want to continue to do more events and services that really showcase the essence of Pride. And I do want to start doing outreaches to a couple of schools just to really engage more with the students and really advocate for better acceptance within the youth in our island. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, of course, artist and musician, Mr. Max, question for you. How does your art reflect and address LGBTQ plus themes? And what message do you hope to convey through your work?
Thank you for the question. I have been blessed that the arts, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Mama Shar, the arts has been a very safe place for many. Whether it be the visual arts or the collaborative arts, whether it be the theater or with music. It's been a very safe place, and my many roles as either a music educator or a music director or in our collaborations with productions is to provide those safe environment where those that are either trying to find themselves or have found themselves can express without fear, and also to be surrounded by such wonderful and loving supporters, family members, community members who would accept them as they are. Because truth be told, they just need to be themselves. And at the end of the day, if you're good on stage, it doesn't really matter what you are. The world will love you. And I think that's what my role is in those leadership roles, is to continue to provide that safe space for those that come into these safe spaces.
Thank you so much, Max. Now, speaking of safe spaces, of course, in rooms that are full of love and being safe, there are some places that are not so safe. So, Sina BJ, question for you is, what are some of the most pressing issues facing the LGBTQ plus community today, and how do community organizations address them?
Thank you very much, Mama Shar. Sendokulu na si Jules Mama si Primera Bebekan Be Nawi Hamzu, Sendokulu na si Jules Mama si Paritina Tunizu Papanahani. This is the three questions that were given to me were it weighs heavily, because I never saw myself as an educator, and most especially as an avid member of a community of joy. I never saw myself segregating people based on their gender. I always see students and children and our youth and empower them to become productive members of our society, regardless of their sexual orientation, their religion, or whatever background they may have or whatever they feel. The Gumas were established by Master of Chamorro Dance, Frank Barbon, and through his work, we've established the continuation of the indigenous Chamorro culture through singing and dancing. And his work and the work of my brothers and sisters who are Fafanagui have infiltrated into the school system to where we can empower students to be proud of who they are and where they come from. Because a lot of the times here in our island, we are very Americanized and we are very westernized, that a lot of the times our youth forget. And the way they feel is, in order for us to be accepted into society, we have to be a certain way. We have to live a certain way. We have to make certain choices. So in the community, prior to me even stepping foot into the Department of Education, I have already provided those safe spaces for our children to learn the culture, to be proud of who they are and where they come from. And I'm just talking on behalf of that part of my work. I know that in the community level, there's a lot of issues and a lot of challenges that we face as a community. But in my little my little Guma that has been in existence for 25 years, I've been able to provide a safe space for our children and our youth to be productive members of society, learning and promoting and preserving the Chamorro culture. Sisus Masin.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Saina. And I know you are definitely a huge member in our community, and of course, in community like ourselves, everything starts at home, which now brings me to Miss Patricia here. How did you support your child when they came out? And what advice do you have for other parents in similar situations?
So I do have a daughter who is a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I tell people all the time that the support that I had from her started way before she came out. You know, as a child, you know, my late husband and I would have conversations and say, you know, I think, yeah, me too. You know, and it starts having those conversations as a parent. You know, you can't put your head in the sand. You can't just hope that maybe I'm wrong. So, and I guess maybe part of it is my background as a teacher. Before I was at Guam Housing Corporation, I was a teacher in the classroom for 22 years. So I kind of had that little bit of background in nurturing students and things like that. So I had to think about, what do I do if she says, gives us this information? So that's so funny, because the only reason why she said anything to us was because she was leaving. And she was relocating to Dallas. And she was relocating with her girlfriend, who she could no longer say, this is my best friend, because I'm going to be living with her. And so that was the impetus for her to come out to me and my husband. And she kind of giggled and said, Mom, Dad, this is who I am. And we just looked at her and said, we know. We knew. Because we had had those conversations from the time she was little, and we weren't hiding, we weren't putting our heads in the sands and saying, maybe we're wrong. There was one time she kind of confused us, because she came home and said, oh my God, Mom, David Beckham is such a beautiful man. You know, I was like, wait, you know. But at any rate, it starts before they even come out. You need to be prepared. As parents, we see things, we have these, these clues. So it starts before that. And then, I'm sorry, I have a minute for the other one. For other parents, I think you just have to be prepared to say, I love you. If you can't do anything else when your child comes out to you, if you're not prepared to fully accept, be prepared to tell your child, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And speaking of love and social work, I have my best friend as well. He works too hard, girl, and that I have to tell him I love him. And that's why I can relate to David so much. As a social worker, my question for you is, what are the unique mental health challenges faced by our LGBTQI plus youth, and how can social workers effectively address them?
Thank you for your question, Mama Shar. I think it's a really important question to ask, because as we know, as a community, social workers tend to fill a lot of gaps, a lot of spaces that are not being filled by the majority of the community. And I'm blessed to have this platform to speak about where social workers can grow into the gaps that are there. I love how Ms. Kerr mentioned that families acknowledging that they love their children. And I think that's where it stems from, right? Is Bobby ever put out, if children can live, or people can live their true authentic selves, that is the most resilience that we need to build resilience, and it starts at home. And it starts with the families, and it starts with the parents, to be able and honest and open to having these conversations that are not necessarily uncomfortable. And I think social workers, to step into that role is more of advocacy, creating groups or events or settings where parents can come and discuss troubles or concerns or questions that they feel they don't know who to turn to, who to ask, who to trust. And I think that's where social workers need to step into in our community, to grow into. And I myself have taken upon my role to try to grow that ability. And further supporting youth, not just the challenges they face, some of the challenges I see a lot with youth are a lot of risk-taking behaviors, substance use engagement, engaging in devious behaviors, right? Exploring their sexualities. And these behaviors are still uncomfortable for families to talk about because as we know, right, being queer is taboo a lot of times still for a lot of conservative or families who are not aware of being the queer community. And so I think those risk-taking behaviors that are also something that we need to shed light on, that queer youth are engaging in, and families are not ready to talk about it. If it's happening within the heterosexual community, it's very much happening in the homosexual community or the gay community or the queer community. So those conversations need to be more accessible or openly and honest. Though it's difficult, they need to be had. That's where I think social workers can play.
Thank you so much for that. Now going back to Mr. Brian Theodosia, question number 2 for you. How do you think schools can better support the LGBTQ plus students, both academically and socially?
Thank you for that question. You know, when you're thinking about how schools can better support LGBTQIA+ students, I think it really is just a matter of listening and becoming aware of what is lacking in the schools that are supporting LGBTQIA+ students. You know, I think just being aware of that and really trying to fill in those gaps can go a really long way. Before I started Triton's Pride Alliance, I had to ask myself, what is lacking at my university? And I ended up learning that UUG has never had an LGBTQIA+ organization before. So I decided to, you know, this is what's lacking at UUG, a community where students can find support and really connect. And yeah, and that's how I filled in that gap. I started Triton's Pride Alliance and here I am today. So, yeah, I think just like administrators and educators, they really should ask themselves the same questions and become aware of what is lacking for their students and find solutions to them. So, like some of the things that I can think about, for instance, is that there may be some classrooms that are still sticking to a stereotypical agenda that's not fully supporting or including queer students, or there may be some students that are lacking support from their parents at home. I think the solutions, like simply is like implementing performance or professional development for teachers to implement a more inclusive curriculum and teaching practice, or even engaging the community and parents in workshops to help educate them in how to support our queer students. I just think that, you know, there's so much things that we as students can do to advocate for ourselves and really make our administrators and educators aware of these issues. I think that just the schools, they have to be willing to listen to us. And I think if we're able to do that, we can be able to fully accept students, not tolerate them, and accept them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now let's dive back into the arts real quick with Max. So, Max, what role do you believe art plays in advancing social justice and acceptance for the LGBTQI+ community?
Well, if I could speak about the importance of the arts in general, despite the fact that we are in unincorporated territory of the United States, we still play by United States rules, as illustrated by Attorney Todd Thompson. And making sure that we get people out to vote is a big, important thing that we need to do. And how art plays in that is in many ways, whether it be for getting the right message across to whoever needs to hear it about our unincorporated territory-ness. And what I mean by that is providing the environment for the most creative visual artist or the most creative videographer to put together that video, that 15 seconds that's going to make a difference and show whoever needs to vote in our favor for whatever we want to do in the future. So I do want to point out Mr. Joe Sanchez, who is my boss at GTOE, has been an advocate for the arts. And so thank you, sir, for your support very much in making sure the arts programs in our schools stay intact. So that's how I see the importance of arts in social justice and putting forth the agenda and keeping the rights for LGBTQ and every other, whether it be the Black community, and then maybe one day women again will be ostracized. So the arts is where we could, if we can continue to support an environment for artists to thrive, we can help them help us produce whatever it may be. It may be a flyer, it may be the best writing on a newspaper, it may be a piece of theater that's going to be very impactful, or a movie. And that's how the arts could keep us and our American way of life as we have it today intact and push forward these agendas.
Thank you. One of my favorite words you just said there towards the end was thrive, and that's exactly how I can say what we do a lot here for our LGBTQ is we're like chameleons, you know. We tend to just know how to work our way around, whether we are in the community or not. We are still here, and we've never left, ever. And going back into that, that's where community comes in. And Simon Bryan, my question for you is, how can individuals get involved in community organizing to support LGBTQI rights and visibility?
So I think already, like you just said, we have been here and we have been very, very visible. As a teacher, I always believe that our students are an exact reflection of their teacher. And so I always put myself in that position, right? And when I started the GUMA in Jonia back in 1999, my goodness, I had many students coming in different walks of life. And then entering the school system, and I want to recognize Ms. Hannah Gutierrez. She was my assistant principal at John F. Kennedy High School, and also Mr. Joey Lujan. He and I talked a lot. But providing there was a club that was founded at John F. Kennedy High School. Miss Gutierrez already left, but it was called the Rainbow Club. And the first teacher that the students sought out was Sino Cholahi. And the reason why they sought me out was because I was openly gay. I was open about my sexuality, but I never flaunted it. You know, here in the Chamorro community, we follow, right, Glenn? We follow in the pursuit of our fathers, and so being a boy from the South, you know, even though I was openly gay, I kept it to myself. But a lot of the administrators would come to me and say, "Hey, BJ, can you take this student in?" Or, "Hey, can we talk to this student?" And that was one way that we got involved as teachers. In the community level, in the GUMAs, you know, again, regardless of your sexual orientation or your religion, if you want to learn Chamorro, and we just came back from FestPac, if you want to travel and you want to showcase your culture, then get involved. And it doesn't matter, you know, if you like boys or you like girls. It doesn't matter if your pronouns are he, she, or it. It doesn't matter. It just matters to where your heart is, and it matters to what you want to do in life and who you want to be in life. And these particular areas that I've mentioned, the GUMAs, and as well as these programs in the school, provide these safe havens and also give us teachers an opportunity to learn from our students as well, so that we can be the role models for them to follow. Sisus Mas.
Thank you so much, Simon. And I should let you know that you are definitely one of our leaders. I see you, girl. I see you. And speaking of family, in this case, Miss Patricia, question for you. And that is, what resources and support systems are available for parents of the LGBTQI plus children, and how can they be improved?
So I reached out, when I was a younger parent and having to, worry about my child and trying to figure out what I can do for her. There weren't a lot of resources back then. I'm so happy that now we have organizations like Gala, right, who work very closely with Jibwick to expand those services to our youth, and not just our youth, but also our parents, because some parents want to support their children, but they don't quite know how. So I'm really happy that we have Equality Guam, we have Gala, we have the Manor that just opened up that's a safe space for those kids. So I think that's really good. That's something that I didn't have as a young parent of an LGBTQIA plus child. So I do want to do a shout out for public health, because they do have a program. It's the STI, HIV, viral hepatitis, and family planning program. And those folks, they provide screening, testing. They also provide information on birth control, on safe sex. They provide condoms. Those are the kind of things that we need to make sure that we normalize. We don't hide it. We don't have to say, oh my gosh, they're passing out condoms. We need to say, yay, they're passing out condoms. There's a difference between the two, right? And then the other thing I wanted to kind of plug was 988. I'm sure Jibwick does a very good job of getting that information out there. But I don't know if everybody knows that there is, when you dial 988, there is an LGBTQIA option. If you press that option, that sends you to a myriad of resources. Obviously, 988 is on the national level, right? And so that gives you a lot of resources for parents and for children. So, I really want folks to think about 988, not just it's for mental health, but there's a specific option for the community, okay? And then I just want to make sure that if you call 988 and you do the local number, they will work with you. And one of the things that I found out is that they work on services that are designed for and delivered by LGBTQIA plus individuals. I think that's an important thing too. I mean, there's a lot that I can do as a parent. There's a lot that I can do as an ally. But there's something about knowing that somebody in your community is working with you to help you get through whatever you're going through. So I think the resources I would push is public health, 988 with Jibwick, and then Gala and Equality Guam. I'm sure there are other resources, but those are the main ones that I found were very supportive of parents as well as their children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fisher. And going back into your the whole portion of the mental health part, David, my question for you, I think this would really tie into this. How would we approach, or how do you approach therapy when it comes to our LGBT clients to ensure that it is inclusive and affirming to their identities?
Thank you for that question. I think that's a great question to ask, because a lot of people ask, how can I support, or families always ask, how can I support my child, or my family member, or my friend, or my, anybody who's queer? And that's sometimes a very difficult question to answer, because every situation and circumstance is different from every individual person. I think to answer, the easiest way I could say is to present yourself with your pronouns. That's a lot of ways that a lot of young people are communicating that I'm a safe person, that I'm a trustworthy person, that I'm going to be sensitive to your background. And I think taking that approach, not just in therapy, but in the school settings, in official settings, in community settings, right? Even here presently, presenting yourself by your pronouns tells the youth, even not the youth, even adults, know that you're a safe person, that you acknowledge the fact that they do have a different sexual orientation or gender identity than you do. And they will take the sensitivity abreast, right, and take it by heart. The other ways I approach LGBTQ clients and create that inclusivity and affirming space is not just creating the safe space, but growing it. Not just creating it in my little therapy room, but also sharing the knowledge, sharing the wealth, growing it with our staff, creating that comfortability or understanding, right? Knowledge brings power. And so I want to create that knowledge give knowledge to the people around me to create that now holistic cultural office space that now the whole space is safe, not just my therapy room, right? And I think if we take that approach, not just on the mental health side, but even in the school settings, right, where the kids are every day, in your work settings, where you see your colleagues and your friends and your family members, right? I think that's the work that needs to be done, not just on the therapy level, but systemic or in a broader sense, right? And I think Guam Behavioral is a great place because I've been able and so blessed to be able to do these kinds of things and to grow the safe spaces that my kids, my colleagues, and myself call home every day, right? So that's some ways of creating an inclusive and affirming space for myself, and also keeping current, staying current as the other panelists have said, right? I have some youth coming in and say, I'm this identity or that identity, I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know, I'm not familiar with that identity, so let me look, and I love how one other panelist mentioned, the kids are teaching us all the time. And I think if we take that approach, that instead of thinking that we have to give all the answers, but maybe we can learn something, right? That sharing of knowledge is in our cultural weaving. And so I think if we take that approach with the kids, that's also affirming that is a safe space. I want to learn from you just as much as you want to learn from me. And that, again, just affirming that it's a safe space. So yes, that's how I approach it.
Thank you. And speaking of safe spaces, especially in the education system, Brian Teodosio, last question for you, and that is more like, can you share an experience where your club made a positive impact on a student's life?
Well, to be totally honest, I haven't had one student come up to me and say, Brian, you really inspired me today, thank you so much. But I will share an experience, or I'll share about an event that I am actually really proud about that Track and Stride Alliance did held. We did hold a roundtable discussion that we called Pride Perspectives. And really, through that event, we were able to present different issues within the queer community, and each of our members were able to share their insights, their experiences, and their opinions onto each of the issues. And I just believe that with that event, it really helped a lot, at least one of our members, I believe, feel seen, heard, and accepted. And they were also able to gain a new perspective and understanding from other people. And I just think what's so beautiful about Track and Stride Alliance, and now just our community in general, is that we're able to inspire each other and support each other day by day. Normally, I'm in a lot of group chats within the UG community, and it's normally used for sending announcements, but in our group chat for Track and Stride Alliance, I will just see our members having full-on conversations with each other, and it's honestly really more than what I could hope for, like a community where we're all able to support each other and just talk about anything in general. And I just think that if we as a community can continue at that same momentum, be able to hold more events like this, be able to do things outside of Pride Month, we can be able to inspire more youth and more students to find acceptance within themselves and be who they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Matt's last question for you is, can you discuss a specific piece of your work that was inspired by your experiences or observations of LGBTQIA+ issues?
So in 2008, our brother Ernest did a production of Rent, and it was the old Daiichi Hotel, now called the Crown Plaza. And just to illustrate how times have changed, this was 2008. There were protesters outside the performance. We fast forward 10 years, and we do Rent again, this time at the at the Sandcastle with Travis as Angel, and no protesters. So times have changed, and I just want to point out here, in this room we have a lot of leaders in this community and allies, and this may be not the norm in the rest of the nation. And so what I mean by that is, at least in my experiences in the classroom and in the community, maybe the situation is reversed, where we probably need to be a little bit more sensitive to those who are not us, because we may be the ones to make them feel uncomfortable, whereas in other places it's the opposite. So I just wanted to point that out too, that maybe we are doing a better job in most places in the world. With that said, one of the things that I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Jeff Tolentino over the last year. He is a Tony Award-winning, Grammy Award-winning producer. And he had come to Guam on his own dime to help elevate this situation. And using the story of a Guam person, Rain Valdez, person who graduated from Simon Sanchez High School as a boy, and then transitioned to the beautiful Rain Valdez. And so I just wanted to see if we want to put action to this. Do we want to be behind? He's really willing to do this movie about this story, about a Guam story, about this person. And if we all rally behind him, who's been at the forefront of doing this, and getting people like Rosario Dawson to be involved, then we put our money where our mouth is, and we can not only uplift LGBTQ issues, but we can uplift our island into the visibility of the Tony Awards or the Grammys or the Oscars. So that's just a challenge for all of us, because in doing so, we would put so many people, so many artists to work locally and bring and create another industry here in Guam. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Sina, last question for you. Can you share a successful campaign or initiative that brought significant positive change for the LGBTQI+ community?
So, as an educator and as an avid member of our community, there are always so many wonderful successes. People would always ask me, why do you want to be a teacher? You know, teachers are the lowest paid professionals in the world. And it's not the money that really drives me to be a teacher. It's when that student comes back to you, makes a point to come back to you and visit you and say, thank you very much for teaching me this, or thank you, I didn't know this until I got to college, and my brother here is giving me some pointers, but thank you. But you know, it's that drives me to become a teacher. And even though I'm not in the school system, I truly believe that I am still a teacher in a sense to the community. One particular story that I have is one of my girls from John F. Kennedy High School. She had a different religion, but she also was struggling with her identity, and she was struggling with her sexual orientation. She came into the Guma and she enjoyed it. She loved it. But she came to me and she asked, she goes, Uncle B, you know, my parents don't approve of my choices. And I told her, I said, give it time, they will come around. You know, at that time, she was so distraught. She ended up leaving off island, and I kept on checking on her saying, you are powerful, you are you, and continue doing great things in your life. And so with that said, you know, she now has graduated and is now a hairstylist at Hairtown in Tamuning. And I go to her now and I say, girl, you need to do my hair now, you know. But the reason why I bring her up is she is my success story. She is the reason why I continue to do what I do, regardless, I mean, aside from all the other successes that I've had. But one thing that I want to also bring up, if I may, is I just recently returned back from the Festival of Pacific Arts, and I was able to sit down and listen to all the delegations speak about Indigenous language and culture, and two things really stood in my heart. One from the Tongan delegation and one from the American Samoan delegation. And the leader from the Tongan delegation said, "Our language and our culture is not negotiable." And so I bring that into our community and I say, who we are and the way we live is non-negotiable. Continue being you and continue living your life to its fullest. The second quote that remains in my heart is, we are not people of small islands. Instead, we are the descendants of the greatest navigators who dared to sail the largest ocean in the world where no one else dared to sail. So, to all of my students and to all of the people that are having a hard time figuring out and finding themselves, the world is going to be a vast and a big world. But as long as you continue to focus and steer straight, you will continue to navigate your own life in a big ocean. Sizus Masing.
I got the goose pimples on my skin, girl. That was fierce, okay? And now, of course, Ms. Patricia, last question for you. And speaking of navigating, how do you navigate conversations about LGBTQI plus issues with family members or friends who may not be, well, so supportive?
So when I got this question, and I was talking to Hannah Gutierrez earlier, I really didn't have to navigate family members or friends who were not supportive. And I think that the reason why I didn't have that experience was because she was just my daughter, who happened to be a lesbian, you know. So anytime anybody spoke to me about her, I just normalized everything. So I can't say that I navigated those conversations. However, in thinking about it, and I thought, okay, if you did have to navigate that, Patty, what would you do? What would you say? Would you be angry? Would you be, you know, complacent? Just allow them to speak however they wanted to be. And I thought, you know, I've got to set the example, right? So things like, you know, everybody knows I'm a Pride Mama. Rebecca Respicio gave me that name 4 years ago because I'm the mama for the volleyball community that has, you know, a lot of folks in the community, right? I'm the mama for the kids that are my daughter's classmates who weren't as supportive. I didn't speak to their parents, but I told them, you're safe with me. I will take you to school, I will take you to your game, I will buy you your water for practice. So I think that if anything, if I was to have somebody come up to me and maybe not be so supportive, I would just say, you know, I loved my daughter as much the day after she told me as I did the day before. It just became another part of who she is. And I think that's what I would say to folks that are struggling with maybe a family member, right? And I think sometimes the folks that maybe aren't supportive are coming from a point of, you know, I'm worried. Because the world isn't always kind to folks in the LGBTQIA plus community. And I think sometimes that concern comes out because they're scared for their child. You know, I had concerns for my child, but she knew that regardless of what happened in her life, she had me to come back to, right? So I would say that if I had to navigate that world, I would just ask people to just remember that you're gonna love your child just as much after they tell you as you did before. And you just need to, you know, I don't want to say normalize because normalize is such a cringy word, but we just need to just act. It is what it is. Doesn't matter who you love, who you want to be. We're just gonna love you. You're just people to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. David, last question for you, Del. Can you share a case where social work intervention significantly improved the life of an LGBTI plus individual or a family member?
So, I think social workers do a lot in our community of advocating and spreading the word and doing a lot to move the needle of acceptance in their community. And I think one of the great ways at Quorum Behavioral we've done that is even just as simple as creating spaces for gender identity, sexual orientation, or and I've seen it when I receive clients and they stop at that portion and they're like, what do I check here? And I think social workers, even just in that instance of knowing that this is a place that acknowledges my difference, not just because I'm different, but because they want to accept me for my difference, right, but not judge me for it. I think that's how social workers have improved the lives of individuals. Also, for myself personally, creating the youth support group, right, I was like, is this really a need? I didn't see it in school, but I felt it was just me. And so I said, no, let's create this. Upon creating that group, it was a group of trans students, and here I am a gay, not a trans individual, so how can I support them? And as a social worker, I said, you know what, this is a safe space. We're creating a safe space. And all these youth are not openly and honest with their families of who they are. And just being able to share, get up and say their chosen name, use the pronouns that they want. That was powerful. Sorry, I choked up a lot because it was so moving to see youth who are suicidal, homicidal, depressed, have immense anxiety, being able to express themselves for the first time was very, very moving. And I asked them, I said, oh, was this the first time that you were able to use your pronouns, use your given name, or your chosen name? They said yes. And that to me was baffling. Like, wow. They have online support groups, but nothing in the world that we live in right now. And I think that was the hurt, the shock, and the scare that I feel in an island that we say we are accepting. But I think that's the work that needs to be done, is creating safe spaces for not just queer people, but trans people, right? To be able to share these things and, think of walking into a war zone where you don't know who's the enemy. That is what our queer youth feel every day. Even their own families are the enemy. And that's the importance of safe spaces. And that's how social workers play a role in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to our amazing panelists this evening. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you guys for sharing your stories with us this evening. And now, for some closing remarks, I'd like to welcome, of course, the Honorable Acting Governor of Guam, Joshua Tenorio, for some words.
Thank you so much, Mama Shar. Happy day, everybody. I hope, I don't know, for me, I felt so uplifted and really enriched. Maybe enriched is not really the kind of word maybe I want to use because we're in school, they say everything you feel enriched, but I feel like I learned a lot from every single person that participated tonight. It really does show us the kind of talent that we have, number one, in our community. And I want to recognize that talent. Joey, I just wanted to talk to you in particular because, your older sister was my classmate, and I just couldn't help but think how proud she would have been if she was still alive to see you and see what you're doing for the youth. It's so awesome. I really I kept wanting to say that to you, but I didn't have a chance. To everybody though, some of you mentioned the kind of society we have. We kind of maybe take for granted that we have folks that are accepting, but we have to fight to make sure that our society stays the way that we know it to be. Guam is a special place. Family is a lot, but there are families, unfortunately, that have not taken care of their youth, their treasures, because of who they are. And as pointed out by so many people, we do have a lot of folks in the community that are still living in pain. But it takes our community to get together and figure out what kind of action we can deliver. That action, you're seeing it in the school system from excellent professional educators and counselors that are out there doing, in many ways, a lot of parenting where there isn't parenting going on in the classrooms. We see it in lawyers that are out there fighting and thinking and trying to move things to the way where everybody feels protected, and to identify those areas where we know there needs to be progress, and stepping out from what you normally do in life to give that time to push that fight. We see folks that are involved in the arts and in culture that in many ways create these spaces and these activities that are the outlet, maybe it might be the only outlet that young people or anybody has to express who they are or to be happy, right? After all, we're supposed to be happy in our lives. And hearing, Brian, I'm so impressed with what you have to say. And it's true, when I went to UOG, I didn't come out really yet. My friends knew, but I didn't really, that was a different time. But you creating and evolving the university and creating that place for students, it truly, truly is remarkable. It is remarkable. It's a leader. That's what a leader does. Patty, I often think about when I told my mom that I was gay, she cried. And she wasn't crying because she was mad. When she was talking, she was crying because she was scared. She was scared because she doesn't want anything to happen to her child. Unfortunately, not all parents are like that, and we have many homeless youth and many homeless adults that have established families with others that are providing that other home, that heart, that unfortunately they couldn't depend on their own family to provide. And in essence, that's really what our community is, right? We call it the family. Are you part of the family? It's a family because we understand the struggles. We can see what being together and working together can do. And we always are quite optimistic in trying to lift people up and get them to be that individual that they know they can be, and how they can pass it on and give that lift for somebody else. That in many ways is what a lot of the groups have done. The Sisters of the Movement, in essence, they created a family, and it goes along with so many organizations and groups that are on the island. So I just want to say thank you very much for sharing your story. This was actually, to me, one of the best things I've ever attended, in all sorts of things. You really did give me a lot of encouragement. For me, it gives us more affirmation on the kind of things that can be done. But more importantly, look at the crowd. These are more people that have come out than I've ever seen before. And what it shows us is there is progress, and we can continue to build on that progress together. So on behalf of the people of Guam, I want to thank you very much. I also want to thank Equality Guam, Jay, and to all of the organizers, Robert. They're probably all nervous. Mama Shar, thank you so much. You know what you do day to day, right? You're a household name. You penetrate, you're able to get through and reach people more than you know. Senator Kanata, thanks so much for being the other gay in the elected leadership. There are other gays running. BJ didn't mention he's running for the mayor of Jogja. Can you imagine? There are good people running, but I have to say, the more people that come out that are able to take these leadership positions and expand it, I really am so confident how our island is going to be even better than it is today. So good night, thank you so much, and Viva Pride! Viva!
All right, ladies gentlemen, that does it for us this evening. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Don't forget, we got some light refreshments outside. So go ahead and make your way. Thank you so much to our panelists. And get safe. Good night.
Yes,